and she must be seen by one who is to act with reason publicly or privately.
I believe as you do, he said, insofar as I am able.
See, he's like, hey, it seems like that's a little bit difficult for him, right? He's like, whoa, yeah, I'm kind of reeling. In as much as I'm able, I believe you. Then believe also as I do, said I, and do not be surprised that those who come thither are not willing to have part in the affairs of men, but their souls ever strive to remain above. For that surely may be expected if our parable fits the case.
Quite so, he said.
Well then, do you think it surprising if one leaving divine contemplations and passing to the evils of men is awkward and appears to be a great fool, while he is still blinking, not yet accustomed to the darkness around him, but compelled to struggle in law courts or elsewhere, like Socrates before the Athenian assembly, about shadows of justice, or the images which make the shadows when he was on trial for his life, and to quarrel about notions of justice in those who have never seen justice itself.
Not surprising at all, said he.
See, he's indicating, right, even though it's the idea of the good, that somehow up here is where you see justice itself, right? But any man of sense, I said, would remember that that's what this whole dialogue is about, justice. But any man of sense would remember that the eyes are doubly confused from two different causes, both in passing from light to darkness and from darkness to light, and believing that the same things happen with regard to the soul also. Whenever he sees a soul confused and unable to discern anything, he would not just laugh carelessly. He would examine whether it had come out of a more brilliant life, and if it were darkened by the strangeness, or whether it had come out of greater ignorance into a more brilliant light, and if it were dazzled with the brighter illumination. Then only would he congratulate the one soul upon its happy experience and way of life, and pity the other. But if he must laugh, his laugh would be a less downright laugh than his laughter at the soul which came out of the light above.
That is fairly put, said he.
See? Now, given all the work that we've been doing before this paragraph, does it make this paragraph easier to understand?
Yes.
Yeah. Then if this is true, I said, our belief about these matters must be this, that the nature of education is not really such as some of its professors say it is. As you know, they say that there is not understanding in the soul, but they put it in, as if they were putting sight into blind eyes.
They do say so,
See the nature of education. But our reasoning indicates that, I said, that this power is already in the soul of each, this power of education, and is the instrument by which each learns. Thus, if the eye could not see without being turned with the whole body from the dark towards the light, so this instrument, the dianoia, must be turned round with the whole soul away from the world of becoming until it is able to endure the sight of being and the most brilliant light of being. Now, what do you want to call that? And this we say is the good, don't we? That turning of the soul, would that be meditation, yoga? Turning the whole soul away from the world of becoming, right? That's this world, the world where things come into and pass out of existence, until it is able to endure the sight of being, which is, by the way, it doesn't come into and pass out of existence, it always is, right? Just like God always is.
Right.
And the most brilliant light of being. There's a vision of that. This we say is the good, don't we? Yes. Then this instrument must have its own art for the circumturning or conversion, to show how the turn can be most easily and successfully made. Not an art of putting sight into an eye, which we say has it already, but since the instrument has not been turned aright and does not look where it ought to look, that's what must be managed.
So it seems, he said.
See, we're not looking where we ought to look. That's what's got to be managed. That's the art. Now, most of the virtues which are said to belong to the soul are really something near to those of the body. What are we talking about? Wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage, which are said to belong to the soul, the four cardinal virtues, are really something near to those of the body. For in fact, they are not already there. Where? In the soul. But they are put later into it by habits and practices. But the virtue of understanding everything really belongs to something certainly more divine. This is something different, a fifth virtue. To understand everything really belongs to something certainly more divine than the other virtues, as it seems, for it never loses its power. but becomes useful and helpful, or again useless and harmful, by the direction in which it is turned. Have you not noticed men who are called worthless but clever, and how keen and sharp is the sight of their petty soul, psukarion, the little soul, and how it sees through the things towards which it is turned?
Quite likely, said he.
Its sight is clear enough, but it is compelled to be the servant of vice, so that the clearer it sees, the more evil it does. Certainly, said he. Yet if this part of such a nature, see, the part,
I get it.
the virtue of understanding everything, the dianoia, right, the eye of the soul, if this part of such a nature had been hammered at from childhood, and all those leaden weights of the world of becoming knocked off, the weights, I mean, which grow into the soul from gorging and gluttony and such pleasures, and twist the soul's eye downwards. If, I say, it had shaken these off and been turned round towards what is real and true, that same instrument of those same men would have seen those higher things most clearly, just as now it sees those towards which it is turned.
Quite likely, said he.
Very well, said I. Isn't it equally likely, indeed necessary, after what has been told, that men uneducated and without experience of truth could never properly supervise a city, nor can those who are allowed to spend all their lives in education right to the end? The first have no single object in life which they must always aim at in doing everything they do, public or private. The second will never do anything if they can help it, believing they have already found mansions abroad in the islands of the blessed. 2 pages. Go. And by the way, we have to figure out, right, like
True, said he.
what he's saying about those 2. We have to make sure we understand those. Then it is the task of us founders, I said, to compel the best natures to attain that learning which we said was the greatest, both to see the good and to ascend that ascent. And when they have ascended and properly seen, we must never allow them what is allowed now.
What is that, pray? He said.
To stay there, I said, and not be willing to descend again to those prisoners, and to share their troubles and their labors, whether they are worth having or not.
What, said he, are we to wrong them and make them live badly when they might live better?
See, right? Even if I find studying with you to be a big mother, you know what I'm saying, pain in the ass, I have to be willing, I'm put upon by Plato to be willing to descend again to the prisoners and to share their troubles, no matter what pains in the ass they are, and their honors. I am making some honor out of it, whether they're worth having or not. Hey, they may not even be worth having. But we, according to this tradition, must go get them. Right? It's a command from Plato. It's a command. So if you see me willing to take on pains in the ass with you, it's because I'm following commands.
Right. I got it. It's not
Good.
personal.
What? Well, it is personal. Are we to wrong them and make them live badly when they might live better in the world above? You have forgotten again, my friend, said I, the islands of the blessed, as he calls them, that the law is not concerned how any one class in a city, blessed, yes, blessed,
No, blessed.
tomato. You have forgotten again, my friend, that the law is not concerned how any one class in a city is to prosper above the rest. It tries to contrive prosperity in the city as a whole, fitting the citizens into a pattern by persuasion and compulsion, making them give of their help to one another wherever each class is able to help the community. The law itself creates men like this in the city, not in order to allow each one to turn by any way he likes, but in order to use them itself to the full for binding the city together.
True, said he, I did forget.
Notice then, Glaucon, I said, we shall not wrong the philosophers who grow up among us, but we shall treat them fairly when we compel them to add to their duties the care and guardianship of the other people. We shall tell them that those who grow up philosophers in other cities have reason in taking no part in public labors there, for they grow up there of themselves, though none of the city governments wants them. A wild growth has its rights. It owes nurture to no one and need not trouble to pay anyone for its food. But you we have engendered like king bees in hives, as leaders and kings over yourselves and the rest of the city. You have been better and more perfectly educated than the others, and are better able to share in both ways of life. Down you must go then in turn to the habitation of the others, and accustom yourselves to their darkness. For when you have grown accustomed, you will see 1,000 times better than those who live there. And you will know what the images are and what they are images of, because you have seen the realities behind just and beautiful and good things. And so our city will be managed wide awake for us and for you, not in a dream as most are now, by people fighting together for shadows and quarreling to be rulers, as if that were a great good. But the truth is more or less that the city where those who are to rule are least anxious to be rulers is of necessity best managed and has least faction in it, while the city which gets rulers who want it most is worst managed.
Certainly, said he.
Then will our fosterlings disobey us when they hear this? Will they refuse to help each group in its turn in the labors of the city, and want to spend most of their time dwelling in the pure air?
Impossible, said he, for we shall only be laying just commands on just men. Just men. Wait, sorry, let me start over. Impossible, said he, for we shall only be laying just commands on just men. No, but undoubtedly each man of them will go to the ruler's place as to a grim necessity, exactly the opposite of those who now rule in cities.
For the truth is, my friend, I said, that only if you can find for your future rulers a way of life better than ruling, is it possible for you to have a well-managed city. Since in that city alone those will rule who are truly rich, not rich in gold, but in that which is necessary for a happy man, the riches of a good and wise life. But if beggared and hungry, for want of goods of their own, they hasten to public affairs, thinking that they must snatch goods for themselves from there, it is not possible. See, these are people that are susceptible to bribery, right? Because they don't have the good and wise life as rich gold in their soul, right? They hasten to public affairs thinking they must snatch goods for themselves from their creeps, right? We call those scumbags, right? Who treat political rule like that. Not only that, we call them the corrupt, right? It is not possible. Then rule becomes a thing to be fought for, and a war of such a kind, being between citizens and within them, destroys both them and the rest of the city also.
Most true, said he.
Well then, said I, have you any other life despising political office except the life of true philosophy?
No, by heaven, said he.
But again, said I, they must not go a wooing office like so many lovers. If they do, their rival lovers will fight them.
Of course they will.
Then what persons will you compel to accept guardianship of the city, other than those who are wisest in the things which enable a city to be best managed, who also have honors of another kind and a life better than the political life?
No others, he answered.
Would you like us then to consider next how such men are to be produced in a city, and how they shall be brought up into the light? As you know, some are said to go up from Hades to heaven.
Of course I should, said he. Remember that this, as it seems, is no spinning of a shell. It's more than a game.
This is me. Remember that this, it seems, is no
Why?
spinning
Because
of
there's
a
so
shell.
many. Why? Because there's so many words there.
It's more than a game. The turning of a
course.
soul round from a day.
Thinking.
It's Socrates.
I only get to say undoubtedly.
Well,
of course. I mean, of course.
Shonda, it's Socrates.
Okay, go ahead.
Remember that.
Yeah,
This
you're reading
is,
Socrates.
as it seems, is no spinning of a shell. It's more than a game. The turning of a soul round from a day which is like night to a true day. This is the ascent into real being, which we shall say is true philosophy.
Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly, right? And that's where we're going to stop, right? Because look, go back to the next previous page. Again, would you like us then to consider next how such men are to be produced in a city? We have a new theme.
It's a new theme.
How they shall be brought up into the light. These are the studies of the philosopher king, by the way. The arts of the philosopher king is the answer to this how. As you know, some are said to go up from Hades to heaven. You like that imagery, by the way?
Hades to heaven, yes. Like hell and then heaven. Thank you, sir. Yes, this was a
Wait.
Tuesday morning.
Yeah, don't.
Tuesday morning class with Mr. Northcott.
It's more than a game. The turning of a soul round from a day which is like night to a true day. The ascent into real being, which is true philosophy.
If you want to know more about Plato, the Dialogues of Plato, and you want it to be taught by Mr. Northcott here, you can see us on Zoom at 10 o'clock a.m. on Tuesday mornings.
Sorry about the anger and the cursing earlier.
Hey, it's reality. It's real life. That's what's up. Boop.